Welcome to the Into Property Investing podcast. I'm here with Charlotte Sanderford, who is the owner of Regal Rentals and Property Management. Hi, Charlotte. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Charlotte is one of my many great letting agents who manage some of my properties on my behalf and has built a really successful letting agency in the Bolton area. And we're looking forward to finding out about her journey throughout the next few minutes. A huge welcome to you, Charlotte. Thank you for your time this morning. Really excited to have you here and to try and find out a little bit more about your journey and share some hopefully hints, tips, and advice with our listeners.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, Charlotte, obviously, we want to know a little bit about you. So, could you share your background and what inspired you to get into the lettings and property management industry?
Yeah. So, I have typically been investing in property with my husband Paul for in excess of 15 years. We started quite slowly to grow a property portfolio, which was at the time managed by other local agents. Everyone's always got one of those horror stories, haven't they? You know, unfortunately that happened to us. And it was then I then started to kind of look at managing one particular property myself. So I did a little bit of research online and managed that tenancy. And then where it then kind of came from as our portfolio was growing, it then kind of made sense for me to kind of dive in a little bit deeper. Obviously, prior to that, there was a lot of self-education going on in the background and research and things like that. It's not the easiest industry to be in excess of 150 pieces of legislation relating to the lettings industry. So it was kind of really important that I understood and was compliant. So that then progressed to setting up the business Regal Rentals. That was founded in 2020. So we are 5 years old next month.
Congratulations. That's a huge achievement. So yeah, 5 years old. Have you got anything... any reflections on those first 5 years?
Certainly feel like I've aged in those 5 years. It's been turbulent at times. I mean, obviously setting up any business is tough. Setting up a business where the changes are constantly kind of happening as well, that's difficult. The financial side is obviously difficult as well, because it's kind of that leap from receiving a salary on a particular day every month to then kind of looking at the business income and essentially what you can draw from that business. So it's been tough. It's been great as well. I've learned so much along the way. I've made some fantastic relationships with people in the local community and outside the community as well. So yeah, no regrets.
I think we were probably one of your early customers, so to speak.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, obviously setting up is quite tough. And as an independent also, that also creates its own challenges, but I think offers a great level of service. And we certainly moved our property letting to you, having had a poor experience with another agent. So I think we first reached out to you through social media, actually.
Yeah. I think that saying kind of comes in though, being in the industry that I'm in, but having a property portfolio, so being a landlord as well, is that, I can talk the talk, but I also walk the walk, because it's kind of what I do day in and day out anyway. So I think that's really important as well. It sounds really, really cliche, and it is maybe a bit cringe, but I do kind of look after my landlord's properties in the exact same way that I look after my own. I think, how would I want that to have been dealt with, and how would I want that to proceed? And, but yeah, as cliche as it sounds, that is kind of my internal slogan or logo or whatever it is that's stamped in there. And that's kind of at the forefront of my mind on most days.
And it's quite clear what motivated you to set up the company. But what were the initial challenges that you faced in terms of the early days of getting set up as a letting company?
I think one of the hardest things that I kept stumbling was I needed to be a compliant letting agent. You'll know if the business is 5 years old next year, I kind of set up throughout COVID. So it wasn't the most ideal time. People was nervous. Nobody kind of wanted to, switch agents during that time. But the biggest thing for me was trying to get a client account. So the banks at that time, everybody was trying to get bounce back loans. I couldn't open a business bank account because all banks thought that I wanted to do was to open a business bank account to apply for a bounce back loan. So I kind of then set up the business in February, but couldn't actually trade until the end of autumn because I couldn't get the bank account that I needed. So that's when I then kind of used that time to, create social media pages, kind of set up the administration and the systems and the processes to the business. But the frustrating thing was that if I was being approached by a landlord, I couldn't actually take on that let because I didn't have the correct bank account in place. So that was super frustrating. Obviously, eventually I got there in the end, but it was kind of a big drawback.
And just for our listeners, could you explain a little bit about having a client account and what that entails and what that really means?
Yeah, so any business that takes money that in effect doesn't belong to them or won't be to them, it has to go into a client account. And a client account is an insurance-backed account. Basically, it typically means that if I collected all landlords' rents and ran off with that money, it would be insured. And I am with an accreditation where we are audited quarterly, bank accounts are audited, and it's like a ring-faced and segregated account that money that doesn't belong to the business goes into. There's certain policies as well that we have to adhere to in the client money protection accreditation.
So yeah, sounds like quite a lot of detail and quite a lot of important.
Yeah.
Yeah, has an important role in the business and making sure that people's money is safe.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So clearly, over the years, the last 5 years, things have developed and changed a lot. What significant changes have you seen in that time or observed in that time around the property letting market?
Well, we've got the biggest one that's kind of pending at the moment, the Renters Reform Bill. It's kind of been dubbed the biggest shake-up in the lettings industry that's ever kind of happened or that anybody has ever seen. I know that the last reading was a couple of weeks ago. And I know that certain things got passed. There'll be so many changes. It's kind of frightening, really. So that will be the biggest change that I've ever seen and kind of need to understand, and so I can educate my landlords as well.
What impact do you think that's going to have on investors and landlords? What are your early predictions on that, Charlotte?
I think people coming into the industry now that are fairly new will adapt quite well. Roll with the resistance. I think kind of old school landlords may panic, and we already have seen that the supply and demand balance has kind of changed again. A lot of landlords are considering selling or if not sold because of the changes that are coming. Because it's so different and it's hard to, when you've always worked in a certain way or, done your lettings or whatever in a certain way and things change, sometimes it's not always about the positives. It's, people look at the negatives and they don't want to change the way in which they work.
Yeah, and clearly will have a big impact on everyone. The investments potentially we make, how we make those investments, people exiting the market, and obviously from the letting side, obviously the day-to-day management. So it is going to be something we're all going to have to get our heads around it. I think it's obviously coming, and whether they make significant changes to that, I think that's probably unlikely at this stage. But again, like I said, we're all going to have to adapt and work out what's best for our own individual businesses and how we're going to thrive in a slightly different marketplace. So obviously, the letting side of things is the bread and butter for you. So what sets your Regal lettings apart from other agencies and services in terms of the client, that client relationship?
I think the experience that I have with my own property portfolio certainly helps. I think the strong connections that I've built with contractors and trade helps as well. But I think that personal approach, the way in which I communicate things with landlords, I think that is different to most other bigger high street agencies, and you'll probably will have experienced this yourself, Roger. If you ring up, you speak to me, I know what issue you're speaking about. If there's a maintenance issue at the property, because I've raised that maintenance issue, I've done that management statement where the rent's been transferred. So I kind of know everything about that property and the tenants that are in there and, any issues that we might face or things like that. And it's about that communication and understanding and knowing the portfolio that you are being paid to manage in effect.
And obviously that creates its own challenges, I guess, as you as you look to grow, if that's your plan to grow the business. How do you manage that if your plan is to grow the business further in terms of the number of properties you manage, bringing staff on board?
Yeah, so it is a goal to bring on staff. I did employ my first member of staff in December, so I kind of realised that I couldn't be everywhere all the time and do everything. So viewings, so when a property is advertised and we get interested applicants, we set up viewings and then do those viewings. So I employed somebody to do the viewings for me. That still then enabled me to kind of oversee everything else. The plan is to get in another member of staff, but that would be very carefully selected to kind of have a similar ethos as me. I am going to struggle with that, but it is something that I know that I need to do to be able to grow and move forward. But I think there's hundreds of people like me that are passionate about property that, you know, are in the job that they do because they've got a passion for it. And it's never kind of, I don't ever want it to be just another number. I want it to be another property that is kind of, I'm looking after or we're looking after as a business, and we will look after it to the best of our ability. It won't just be a kind of another one that's gone on the books and another one that's gone on the books, because that's not why I set up the business. So to kind of have that objective at the start needs to be there all the time.
Yeah, I think that's part of your values, though, as an individual and within your business, is to make sure that the service you're offering is really strong. And it's always difficult, I think, as an entrepreneur to let go of certain elements, certain things which you've put into place, you've built, you've seen grow, you've seen it's work successfully. That next stage of letting go of part of that is really quite tough. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how you manage that and how that develops and grows whilst you're on your journey. The other part, obviously, about this is the technology which you can use. And there's so much technology in the market. What have you implemented within your business, and what have you found successful? Perhaps you've implemented something which you haven't had so much success with, and perhaps then headed in a different direction.
Yeah, so kind of the software that I use is the biggest thing. I mean, obviously, when I started out, I couldn't get the all singing, all dancing software because the finances in the business didn't support that for the amount of properties that I was managing. So I have had a few CRM switches. I think I've found the most perfect one now suitable for me in the business. It will allow everything to be uploaded and kind of stored on the software, but then also allow staff to, once staff come on board, staff to kind of see what I can see and kind of assign tasks and things like that. It's also it's changing CRM has made me kind of review previous systems and processes that I had in place and tighten those and make sure that there was guides always available on how I would do something, and that's how the business would do it. I am always open to change, obviously. If it's positive change, then that's great. But yeah, it's kind of, when you work on your own, you kind of do what's best for you as well at that time. But like I said, there's always room for improvement. It's kind of welcome anybody's thoughts on how that can kind of be achieved, whether that be from a new staff member or somebody selling a new piece of software or something like that.
And what piece of CRM system, or what CRM system are you currently using out of interest?
So I use 1090.
What have you found the pros and cons of that system, Charlotte? It's really interesting to see from my side. I don't really get to find out the sort of the back end of letting agents, how that works. I'm sure our listeners will probably feel the same.
Yeah, so 1090 integrates with it can be integrated with signables. So when we need signatures, it can integrate with that. So it's kind of like a seamless transition of sending documents to somebody's email with a signature that we require. It interlinks very well with my website. So something that we kind of changed recently was tenants can now go on the website and log maintenance issues, whereas before they used to kind of WhatsApp the business at all hours in the night, whether it was urgent or not. So I then kind of looked at moving that away, whereas now the WhatsApp is just for emergencies, and any other sort of maintenance issue is logged online. So it integrates very well with that. It just automates a lot of things that that need automating, you know, tenancy application forms and things like that, and sending out property details of properties that we've got for rent. We can kind of do that at the click of a button. So it's really good for the clients as well, because if somebody rings up and they want details on a property, I'm able to email them pretty much instantly. So it kind of, you know, it keeps everybody happy.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're looking to move some of the HMOs we've got in-house in the next month, and some of the things we're finding. So we're using Coho. I don't know if you've heard of Coho before, and they've launched an update. I think it was only yesterday, where they're integrating Go Cardless.
Oh, right, okay.
To take rental payments and such like. So yeah, it's really interesting to see what technology is in the market and how that works and operates. Like I said, it's a new piece of work for us as a company. But yeah, to move those HMOs in house and the challenges which come with that, make sure we're compliant, make sure we've got a good level of service. And the other challenge I think is the out of hours service, and no one can be on call 24 hours a day. So we're probably going to sign into basically a phone line who will both triage those emergency calls and also then dispatch tradespeople if required. So, yeah, it is a challenge, especially being on call 24 hours a day. You can't do it all. No. So yeah, which comes on nicely really to serviced accommodation, a very different area of your business. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in serviced accommodation and how that fits in your overall business model?
Yeah, so I kind of then progressed and I attended an event down in Peterborough where I kind of learnt about the world of serviced accommodation. So it was like a 3-day intensive thing and completely different property strategy, but one that kind of I understood and got excited about. It's a hospitality business at the end of the day. It's you know, there's lots of different kind of ways in which you can do serviced accommodation. You can do it on your own property, or you can do a rent to serviced accommodation. Each and all come with their own kind of things, you know, checking that you're on the right mortgage package for that, because it's not your standard buy-to-let. So the rules and things that are kind of involved in that are different. So it was then kind of learning about a brand new strategy which came with brand new different pieces of legislation. You know, guests are not tenants, so it was kind of understanding that side of it. So I set up Regal Short Stays in July 2022, and we've had units, we've give units back, we've changed on them. Location is the most important thing. I've currently now got 4 units. I am looking to expand and get another one on that. I do have help running that business because of the demand, and maybe times that guests check in are not always convenient for me with having a family, and you know, I think the timescale in which a response is required from a host to a guest is different to tenants. So it's extremely demanding. It's exhausting at times, but I still enjoy doing it, and I still want to kind of also expand that business as well.
It is a very different marketplace. Do you have any concerns about the potential new legislations coming into place for serviced accommodation?
So we got the new fire regs last year, which kind of impacted a lot. I'm not fully convinced that I wouldn't even want to say a number, but I see properties on Airbnb and Booking.com that I don't look fully compliant to the new fire regs. That kind of had a financial impact on the properties that I've got as well, because I then had to go back to the properties I'd got and implement all these kind of new changes. But ultimately, to ensure that my guests are safe is the number one key thing. You know, it's health and safety comes first in that sort of aspect. So I know that there's more changes coming with council tax and things as well, but I then also kind of think mine are on business rates anyway, so that the increase in council tax for a second home, I'm hoping kind of doesn't alter anything around the business rates and things like that. The funny thing is with that is, and I kind of say it about the lettings industry as well, is nobody kind of knocks on your door and tells you that a new piece of legislation is out and this is a new change, and it's quite frightening, really, that unless you're actively seeking these changes in all the different property strategies out there, you're not going to know about them. So that's where your network comes in, to kind of have that network of did you know this new piece of legislation's out, and have you seen that, and what are your thoughts on that? And I think if you kind of shut off from other professionals that are kind of doing the same thing as you, unless you're actively seeking these changes, you're not going to know, and then you're not going to be compliant.
Yeah, it seems mad, really, that there isn't some kind of government database which sends a newsletter or something out with any pending changes and whether they get passed.
Yeah.
To make sure that actually the information is readily available for us to be compliant. And it almost feels like that they don't want us to be compliant because they want us to trip up, and then they want the punishments which come with it. Yeah, it is a big trip. Yeah, one big trip up. But it's really interesting, isn't it? And I think the networks which you build and making sure that you're active and online in trusted sources and making sure that you can verify those sources as well in many cases, because there's a lot of great information online, but there's also a lot of poor information out there, and you have to wade through it all and make a judgment call. But it would be helpful if they would do that. But hey, I won't hold my breath on that one. So earlier last year, you were awarded Bolton Business Woman of the Year award. Fantastic achievement. Congratulations.
Thanks.
How has this accolade improved your career and business?
I think it hasn't kind of improved the business. It was, and I know it doesn't probably sound very well, but it was a brilliant event to kind of market the business on social media as well. It's nice to kind of reflect back to people and, to kind of show what you've achieved along the way. But I think it was more personal for me that somebody had acknowledged the kind of work that you've put into something and what you've achieved. And I think I probably took more from that on a personal level than on a business level. And I think it kind of, it was probably, and it's that kind of to keep going and to keep doing what you're doing. And it's that acknowledgement, isn't it? And I think so it came at a good time. So I was super proud.
I think it's probably act as a bit of a motivator to keep going, to say, I'm doing a great job. People are recognizing that within the industry. And I'm competing against a number of other businesses in a nice, positive way.
Yeah.
And we're all here to support each other. So, I think it is a fantastic achievement, and congratulations once again.
Thank you.
And it was fantastic to see, pictures and posts about the event and the celebrations afterwards. So, I think, it's really great. And also recognizing there are great women within the property industry.
I was just kind of going to say, and great women in other kind of industries as well, that it was a brilliant opportunity to meet so many inspirational women in one room that had kind of, achieved something or done something that was absolutely incredible, and to kind of meet them, because normally our paths may not have crossed because we're not in the same industry, but so honoured to kind of, meet these sorts of women and be inspired by them, really, and it's very empowering. So it was a wonderful evening.
And I also think that we need more female role models within this sector in particular. Certainly as a father of a young daughter, and I know that you have daughters as well. Being a role model to our daughters and making sure they know they can achieve anything they want to achieve. There are no barriers, and breaking down those barriers is really important.
Yeah, it was good.
I just feel, we want to make sure that our family members, women within our sector in particular, but wider than that, actually have the same opportunities as everyone else. There are no barriers within this society. But unfortunately, we know that isn't quite the truth at the moment. But we strive for that, I think.
Keep going.
So thinking about your future plans, then what are your short-term and long-term goals for Regal Lettings, and where do you see the company growth over the coming year?
So at the moment, I am in the middle of a degree. I kind of started that. I don't know if you've heard of ROPA, so the Regulation of Property Agents. So it's something that Property Mark have been wanting to introduce for some time. So it will therefore mean that anybody that kind of deals with property, so letting agents, deal sources, must kind of have a standard level of education. So obviously I started that kind of educational journey before I started Regal Rentals, but I then kind of progressed onto the higher education. So I am looking at finishing that within the next month. That then I'm hoping will kind of put me in good stead for, so if Roper does come in, I think a lot of smaller independent businesses that don't have the qualifications that they need need to consider selling. So I'm hoping there's some kind of consultancy directorship thing that, we could maybe offer to kind of keep other businesses flowing well, so to speak. It is anticipated that I will get a staff member. I know that that's what the business needs in order to grow. And just the continued growth again, we had another great year. I think I will need the help with a staff member when the Renters Reform Bill comes in. Just think to allow me to fully understand it, to make sure that all my properties and landlords and everybody's compliant, then I'm going to need that extra help in the day-to-day running of the business. So that's the plan, just continue to invest and kind of, generate safe and comfortable houses for tenants, and just keep doing what I'm doing, really.
And talking about Roper, what does that involve? What kind of things is it teaching you? Just so our listeners know a little bit more about it.
So it's kind of just about the lettings industry, really, but it kind of goes back to social housing in the 60s and 70s, and the slums in which, and how it kind of evolved. So it's the qualification I'm doing is looking at the whole way in which it evolved, but obviously there's other things in there, such as things that's needed, and kind of legislation and understanding all the different legislation that's involved, but also kind of educating how we should be educating our tenants and landlords as well. And, there's all the different laws that are out there, and contracts and things like that. And just to be educated well enough to be able to run a business and kind of be entrusted with other people's properties. I do think it's really important that you've kind of got an agent that understands all the legislation and the effects of not understanding the legislation and not being compliant as well, and the hefty fines that can come with that. So yeah, that's what I'm kind of learning in the qualification that I'm doing.
And what sort of time commitment is involved in getting that qualification, and what sort of costs are involved? Like I said, I'm sure there will have other letting agents who are looking at this.
Yeah.
It'd be great if
so I mean, there's different ways in which you can do it. So, but it's hours and hours and hours worth of work. But it was, I think it was typically harder for me because I should have done it one day a week, but the business didn't always allow me to work on it one day a week. So I then had to kind of, and that was for 2 years. Try and find a diary where I could pencil it in to kind of do this work and to study and things like that. I mean, I have an online tutor, so my actual admission into this was partly funded. So there are loads of different options out there. You can do it with Property Mark Direct. So they kind of have a different approach where you would have about 6 workbooks, so thick. You read them in your own time and then you do an exam at the end. I chose a different route. So I chose to kind of go down the written workbook route and then have online discussions with tutors and things like that. That's just my personal learning style. I learn as I go, and I'm kind of a doer, so it worked better for me to do it this way. I know it was slightly longer, but if I'm not kind of fully absorbing everything that I'm learning, then there's just no point in kind of doing it. I needed to retain all the information that I was kind of being shared with.
As you say, ultimately people work and learn in different ways, so hopefully there's a style out there which suits everyone.
Yeah. And there is. It's just finding the right one.
So are there any upcoming projects or expansions that you'd like to share with our audience?
So nothing as yet, and that's kind of because I know I've said it a few times, I am waiting for the final announcement of the Renters Reform Bill, and that's kind of where Regal Rentals is kind of waiting for that at the moment to see what that will look like and how we will manage it and how we think our landlords will manage it with the portals and the databases and things that they need to go on to. My only plan for for Regal Rentals, like I said, is to get a staff member. Regal Short Stays, on the other hand, looking to expand on that and get more units, maybe a little bit further out now, but still within driving distance for me, that from a health and safety point of view, I can still get there within the hour. But I'm just excited. It's January. I'm looking at, just continuing to grow, have another successful year, and just continue on this weird and wonderful and crazy journey that I've kind of been on for the past 5 years.
And knowing you as I do, Charlotte, I think that obviously will be another really busy and successful year for you.
Thank you.
Thinking about just the advice and insights which you might give to other people, what advice would you give to other women aspiring to enter the property management industry and potentially set up their own business?
Advice would be to network with other women in the property industry, educate yourself, find and build those connections, because it's nice to kind of have that network of people around you that are kind of going through it, but definitely do it. Just do it.
And obviously, it's really running these businesses are not just the 9 to 5.
No.
It's a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
How do you balance running the demands of running a successful business and obviously personal life? What strategies have you implemented to maintain that effective balance?
Unfortunately, that's probably something I struggle with, to find that balance. I am lucky enough that I work from home, so I don't have kind of like a high street branch. I think that kind of helps with things. If there's something needs doing, I will do it. And whether that means logging back on and doing it at 8 o'clock at night, I do it. I am aware that doesn't give me a great work-life balance, hence the reason why I am kind of looking for a staff member. But I have lots and lots of to-do lists, and I kind of look at those and prioritise work. But it's an industry where sometimes we have emergencies, and so it's how we deal with those, and that kind of comes back to about the trades that we use and the relationships that we have with our contractors, and being able to, rely on other people as well to kind of go out in an emergency situation. But yeah, the demands of the business.
It's all about your power team. It is all about your power team, isn't it, Charlotte?
Absolutely.
You build up over time.
Yeah.
There's trusted people.
Yeah.
Who you can rely on time and time again.
Yeah.
Yes, and often they might cost a little bit more money, but again, that's money well spent in my head.
Yeah. And I think if, once you find someone that's professional and in that power team, then you need to look after them well.
Yeah, definitely, because they're all busy people. The good tradespeople are always busy.
Yeah.
Time and time again, you're asking, right, can you just go and sort this out for me? Or can you just go, there's never a time I've found in particularly the last 5 years, where the tradespeople have been really quiet and actually, you're asking more of them. So clearly they need to be rewarded financially for that. Yeah, not just the qualifications, the time, it's the experience, the knowledge, the communication, which comes alongside that. So we ask, just to conclude today, we ask a couple of standard questions. So we always ask for a recommendation for a book that has inspired you on your journey. Have you got a book which you've read which has really inspired you? Would you like to share with our listeners?
I am reading a book right now which is very inspiring. It's Who Not How. Can't remember the author, I'm sorry, but that's kind of it's like a growth for entrepreneurs to kind of look at who they will use to do things rather than how they will do things. So I'm quite enjoying reading that book at the moment.
Have you got any others which you've read perhaps as well?
I like the Stephen Bartlett books. Forgot what it's called. It's in my cupboard there. Is it The Diary of a CEO?
Yes.
I really enjoyed reading that, and then I kind of went to see him live at the O2 doing the Diary of a CEO, so that was really good. I enjoyed that book. I also kind of enjoyed the Happy Sexy Millionaire as well, which again was by Stephen Bartlett that he'd done that. So, and strangely enough, I only started reading about 2 years ago. I never ever read books. My husband's a big book reader, so I raided his bookshelf first, and then now it's kind of progressed to where I read every night.
I think for me, I normally end up reading on holiday, which really annoys my other half, because I take something like business related on holiday with me to read, and she's like, "Well, why don't you relax and read something like a novel?" But that's it's interesting. I didn't really read too much until the last few years. I read a bit more now. But I think you find reading, and then you find something you enjoy reading, or a topic or a subject, and it makes it a whole lot more interesting. So Thanks, Charlotte. There's one other thing we always ask about future guests for the podcast. So, is there anyone who you think would make a great guest who you might be able to introduce us to, or recommend who our listeners might like to hear from?
I know a lady who would be a wonderful guest. So she typically is in the serviced accommodation world, but she also mentors people in the property industry. Her name is Vicky Pollard. She's based down south. I had her as a mentor for a while. So she would be a wonderful, wonderful woman to kind of have on.
Well, that sounds really exciting, Charlotte. And if you could introduce us, that would be brilliant. We'd love to have her on as a guest on the podcast. So yeah, certainly if you could share those details after the recording, then we'll try and reach out.
Yes, I will.
Brilliant. No, fantastic. Charlotte, thank you so much for your time and also your help and support with my property journal. It's been an interesting couple of years, as we both know. And it's really great to hear a little bit more about you and your journey and your exciting plans for the future. So a huge thank you for your time. And wishing you every success for 2025.
Thanks for having me, Roger.
Thank you for your time.